You get the picture. We are the AI-powered CRM and marketing software killer you have been dreaming about. Here is the juicy part. We do not make money if you say yes. So why are we practically giving this away? We are the marketing team behind a shop that's done over $6 billion in sales. We recently took Celsius to a $15 billion market cap, even though our executive team has worked with IBM, Intel, HP, AT&T, 1-800-Flowers, and many other billion-dollar companies and celebrities. We also help tens of thousands of small businesses. This is why we can provide you with an unbelievable offer so you can scale your business. Unless you enjoy overpaying for marketing software, click the link now and let's 10x your business together. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention we have hundreds of testimonials and have won multiple awards for our software and services. Click the link before this deal ends.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how I keep track of all my tasks. I start by brain dumping everything I need to get done in a list view. Next, I set a priority and a due date to keep things on track. I create custom statuses to organize my progress exactly how I want it. I like to add the action items field so AI can show me the next steps. I add my teammates as watchers so they're in the loop. ClickUp makes work easy, from personal projects to running a multi-billion-dollar company. Click the link below to create your workspace for free. ClickUp makes work easy, from personal projects to running a multi-billion-dollar company. Click the link below to create your workspace for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a sound test. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a sound test. All right, so there is this wonderful video, and please bear with me. I got some kind of bug. I don't know if it's COVID or some other viral thing. It is that time of year. Really bad sore throat, a little bit of nausea, not that much. So I'm honeying up, and I'm going to do my best. Try not to talk too loudly to agitate my voice too much. I really shouldn't be doing this, but I love the punishment, apparently. So this is a debate between the left and the right on Jubilee that came out today. And it's quite interesting because we have one of the top propagandists on the right, this guy with the dreads, Kazi or something. He is top notch. I think he's much more skilled than even Charlie Kirk. He's at a higher level, in my view. I mean, you really got to be deep down the rabbit hole to not see how unhinged he was. But Kazi is much more smooth, much more skilled. He's really good at the both sides, giving the impression that he's being reasonable, strategic conceding, right? Unlike some of the lower tier propagandists who won't concede ever, which makes it more obvious that they're being manipulative. So, debate is, what is Donald Trump hiding? Let's see what they have to say.
That you and I, we can all disagree like heck, but at the end of the day, we are humans with equal dignity. I believe we are.
I will give this guy substance of what he's saying in his arguments. It's more obvious that he is not a good faith actor, but he's got the sound. Boy, does he have the sound. Kazi doesn't sound good, but this guy, he's all, we really got to, we got to really come together. I think this issue is it's not about left or right. I think it's about loving one another, and I believe in frankly, I think good things are good and bad things are bad, and that is the basis of my argument. And I really I'm glad that you guys brought us together here to have a debate. I love having conversations. I think conversations are very good, and it's good to have conversations. And I love having conversations, and conversations are good and productive. We're hearing each other out and exploring different viewpoints, and that's that guy.
We are created in God's image. And I know that we're going to live up to that purpose in our conversation today.
These case files, these documents to be released, and Thomas Massey, who is sponsoring a discharge position to get the House to vote on releasing those documents, says he doesn't believe you're implicated in these files, but many of your friends and donors may be, and he says that's why the Justice Department is redacting them and slow walking the release. Is the Justice Department?
I wish you guys could better see their faces, because to me, the folks on the left seem much more calm. The folks, let me increase the resolution here. The folks on the right, I don't know, they look a little uncomfortable. I think they recognize that this is not something they want to really defend, right? But let's see.
Protecting any friends or donors, sir? So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. It reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given, but it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president.
The Epstein files.
So remember what I said about the brown skinned guy on the far right. No pun intended. He is excellent at the both sides objective. He's like a Tim Pool if Tim Pool had a brain. That's what Kazi is.
Those are a Democrat hoax.
3, 2.
Monday.com.
So the question that they're asking is this whole Epstein files thing. Is there any there, or is it basically a Democrat hoax? They called it. Let's see the response.
Curious to hear what you have to say.
What I think
Notice right off the bat, Kazi has gone in the opposite direction. His light is red. That means that he thinks that the whole Epstein thing is not a Democratic Party hoax. I don't know, I said host. But wait, there's more, right? His whole thing is the both sides, right? This is what he does, right? Gives the appearance of being reasonable. He's not going to do what you would think he's going to do. Like he's a right-wing propagandist, so he's going to be like, it's a hoax. He's a little bit more smooth with it. The guy to his right, not so much. He's just got the voice.
the president's referring to is this newfound interest.
I think what the president's referring to is this newfound. So now the game that's being played is I'm going to whitewash what the president is saying because I can read his mind, right? So the president is not making this statement, but I'm going to defend him and come up with an argument from my own brain that absolves him, right? This is the sane washing, I think they call it. Oh, but what he actually means is, right.
Interest in Democratic leadership, Nancy Pelosi, AOC, Chuck Schumer, people who didn't speak about Epstein or the victims, people who were actually abused and trafficked. For 4 years, President Biden, Merrick Garland had the DOJ. They could have released these files. Now,
just to be clear, Donald Trump has very clearly, and this is what usually happens with apologists for scam artists and con men and propagandists. They make up excuses that the person they're defending didn't say. In fact, the person might have said the opposite, right? Facts don't matter. Reality doesn't matter. What matters is I need to pander to people that like Trump by coming up with some kind of a defense that sounds good. So his whole thing is that Trump means not that this thing didn't really happen. He just means that the Democrats are just exploiting it. Now, this is demonstrably false. Donald Trump has specifically stated that it's fake, that the Democrats set him up and they put stuff in there to make him look bad. It's lies. He says that there is no credible. We're going to release whatever's credible, suggesting that a lot of stuff in there is not credible. So he's basically suggesting that Democrats have committed forgery and are trying to set him up for something that he didn't actually do, right? His henchmen are saying that there's nothing there. Epstein only trafficked to himself, right? That's what they're saying. So Trump and his people are very clearly saying that this is actually a hoax. But this apologist is lying and pretending like, oh, he just means that they're exploiting it. No, he means both. Well, not shouldn't say he means both, but he points out both. Trump points out the fact that the Democratic Party is exploiting this, which is irrelevant. I give the analogy where someone at your job is stealing stuff from the office, maybe something pretty serious, and you want their job. So you spend a lot of time and focus on ratting them out so they can get fired. And then rather than discussing the fact that this person was committing crimes, people that like them say, you only did this because you want his job. Okay. Like in the context of a crime happening, who the hell cares why the person ratted out this person that's doing a crime, right? If the Democratic Party is exploiting it, conservatives who claim to care about children and want to see the Epstein and the truth and want to see these billionaires and Clinton go to jail, they should have no problem with the Democrats exploiting this. They should be like, the people that we voted for are screwing us over. They are covering this up. They keep blocking the release of the files. They're playing games about let's get the grand jury stuff and not the files that we wanted. So F-U-C-K, the GOP, who is screwing us and playing like we're stupid. And Democrats, go Democrats. I hate you. I hate your ideology. I hate what you guys stand for. I think you guys are communists. But if you want to use this to go after Trump, go right ahead, because we actually care about the kids. We want to see justice, right? So they should be supporting the Democrats. Instead, it's a deflection and, you know, hey, but the only reason they're doing it, like, who cares why they're doing it? Irrelevant. If I find out that there's a guy in my neighborhood that's molesting girls, and this happens to be somebody I'm having a beef with about something unrelated, and I go to my way to rat him out, what kind of immoral person in that situation bothers to even bring up the fact that I have a beef with this person? Any person with any kind of values or morals, they don't care that I have a beef with this person. They're just glad that I'm exposing this predator. But yet you see a lot of right-wing influencers and their audiences that are happy to deflect and talk about, oh, the Democrats are exploiting it. So the F what?
Now, all of a sudden, when there's an opportunity to maybe smear the president,
Who cares?
they now want to say that because they're not going to be released or they are going to be released, this somehow implicates the president. When you heard Thomas Massie say he doesn't think the president's implicated, when Jeff...
They're not saying that. Why they're saying that the president is implicated is because it's 10-year friendship. The tons of evidence that shows the connections, right? Videos of him with Epstein, pictures with him and Epstein, the fact that he attacks everybody else but Epstein, the fact that he is helping the only person that's being held accountable, put them in a better prison, and they may actually get pardoned, perhaps. Hasn't happened. The fact that Trump is doing doing exactly what you'd expect him to do if he was implicated, is why people think he's implicated. Yes, part of that is him covering it up, but that's a bad faith argument to say that's why. That's what people are saying. Oh, he's covering it up, so therefore he's guilty. Right? But for him to acknowledge the mountain of evidence against Trump, that's not a road he wants to go down, right? So let's move the goalpost. Let's do a straw man. Let's pretend like it's all about him not releasing the files. That's the argument that not the left, but the people who have values and actually care about these children, right? Because that's some conservatives, that's some centrists, and left-wingers. It's not a left-wing or right-wing thing. I hate sounding like Mr. Kazi here, but that's the truth. There are people all across the political spectrum that actually want the truth out. It just so happens that predominantly on the right, it seems like there isn't much of an interest in this. Verbally, they pretend, but their actions say otherwise. Right? Let's continue.
Jeffrey Epstein's, the attorney that represented some of the women who went against Jeffrey Epstein says that Donald Trump fully cooperated. When Donald Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago when these allegations first surfaced.
Notice again the lies. And I want you to understand, if Donald Trump is actually innocent and this guy's good faith, then why can't he make a good faith argument? Why does he have to lie? This is a common talking point. Donald Trump kicked him out. And he specifically says when the allegations came out. Trump himself has said that's not why he kicked him out. Right? Once again, Trump himself said the reason he kicked him out was they had a disagreement and he talked about a real estate deal and him taking his girls. But you have to wonder, there's another reason why we think he's implicated. If you don't know what Epstein's doing, then aren't you suspicious why he's taking your massage girls? Like, what's he using them for? You're hanging out with this guy, he's a close friend of yours, and he's at your club taking your people and trafficking these girls. Somehow you didn't see any of that? But again, the bottom line is the reason that Trump said that he kicked him out had nothing to do with the allegations, right? So why is it that, once again, the people who defend Trump and the Republican Party, why do they have to lie so much, right? Why can't they stick with the truth?
I think it's an opportunity. It's opportunism for the Democratic Party leadership to use.
It is, but so what?
The inherent confusion and ambiguity around the Epstein files to somehow smear the president. You saw Elon do a little bit of this in June when he said that he was in the Epstein files. What does that even mean? So that's what I view it as, is that
Elon said he's in the Epstein files. What does this even mean? Why didn't Elon Musk get sued for defamation and smearing? If it's all a lie and a hoax, why is the president who loves to sue everybody, why does Elon Musk get a pass? Elon Musk, who himself has ties to Epstein.
that not the Epstein investigation is a hoax. I think there's obviously real victims there, women who were abused and trafficked. But this newfound concern on the Democrat Party.
And there it goes. There's the hedging. So Kazi does it a little bit better, but this guy puts it in there as well. So again, the trick is you hear what you want to hear, right? You don't notice him deflecting and playing games and lying, right? When somebody challenges you about him and say he's bad faith, you say, no, that's not true. He acknowledged that there are girls that are getting trafficking. This is what they do. Tim Pool does this very overtly. Fence sitting and being on both sides of an argument, right? On one side, he's saying, he's dismissing it. It's a hoax. And then he says a whole bunch of stuff in support of that. And then at the very end, by the way, actually, there are some girls that were trafficked. Okay.
Party. And I got to say for myself, too, some Republicans like Thomas Massie, I consider to be a grade A grandstander. He tweeted about Epstein 4 times prior to Donald Trump's second term, 76 times since Donald Trump.
Who cares? Politicians are hypocrites. They're liars. They're frauds. We know this. It's a bipartisan thing. I would argue the Republican Party is much more corrupt and lies much more than the Democrats, but it's not a competition. They're both corrupt. They both lie. Why are we talking about this? This conversation is not about politicians being crooked and dishonest and opportunistic. The question is about, what is Trump hiding?
Trump took office. So it's a wedge that's being used, I think, to divide the party, divide the country, and hurt Trump. You said confusion and...
I know what dividing the country, but hurting Trump, yes. Partisan reasons, yes. Or if you're the typical American that is a victim of our schools, you would say it's politics, because you don't know what the word politics means. Everything that politicians do is politics. That's their job. It's their job to do politics. Partisanship is the problem. Know the difference between politics and partisanship. Politics is good. Politics is like medical or medicine. You're a doctor, right? You're a medical doctor, right? You practice medicine, right? You do medical things, right? Medical that's your thing, what you do, right? You're practicing medicine. A politician does politics. That's why you call them a politician. What they're not supposed to be doing is the partisanship. That's the sports, my team versus your team. I'm going to say something just for points, right? I'm going to lie. I'm going to deceive. I'm going to grandstand, all to attack the other side and to get gains on my side. That's the partisanship. Politics is their job, and that's what they're supposed to do. That's what we pay them to do. That's what we elect them to do. We elect politicians to do politics, not partisanship.
And ambiguity, and I don't even think those are adequate labels to talk about most of the media attention to the Epstein files. I'd say it's the energy that's generated amongst conservative pundits. And to your credit, I don't think that a lot of Democrats were talking about this while Joe Biden was in the executive, but day after day, we saw conservative pundits demanding this. This is what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance ran on.
To be fair,
they did run on it. J.D. Vance specifically said, we will release the Epstein files in interview after interview.
Well, so it wasn't interview after interview. I went to many Trump rallies. This was not coming up.
So this is another classic strategy. When you have a losing argument, you jump on anything that you feel that you can win on, right? Making an argument that Trump ran on releasing the Epstein files, that's a challenging thing to defend, right? The fact that he may have mentioned about releasing the Epstein files would not make a solid case, right? You'd have to look at the frequency at which he mentioned it. Was it in his agenda, right? That makes things a little complicated. And these guys on the left probably can't defend that he actually literally ran on it, right? So this guy's excited when he makes that statement. This is what you do when you have a bad argument, right? You jump on anything that's besides the point, right? The person you're debating makes one little misstep, they misspeak or say something, not in the right way. And then you jump on it, you treat it as an absolute. They say something sloppy like, everyone knows. Now, there's nothing that everyone knows, right? So if I'm a bad faith actor, you say everyone knows, doesn't matter what comes after that. I can jump on that and spend 5 minutes saying that's not true because you can't know what everybody knows and blah, 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 and get all animated and make a big deal. And that's all a decoy. The clock is ticking. We have limited time to discuss the topic. And I'm going to run up the clock talking about something that's irrelevant. Right?
Up frequently. I agree with you, though, and I do place a lot of blame on the conservative pundits who did want clicks and wanted subscribers and wanted monetization.
There's the Kazi strategy. After all of this whitewashing and defending and partisanship, now he throws in, I critique both sides. Oh, yeah, these pundits. He's not going to name any pundits, right? And that's how you can tell the difference between good faith, right? versus playing games. Good faith, he would have said this already. He would have volunteered that the pundits were doing that, and he would call names. Bad faith is just get that generic statement in so you have plausible deniability. No, I called out the pundits. Manipulative.
Monetization deals, and they perpetuated this. Absolutely.
I think where the actual confusion kind of comes from is this idea of like where is the hoax that we're finding? If we know that Trump ran a lot of his campaign off of releasing these files, and we also had Pam Bondi saying that the list was on her desk, and then the DOJ has come out recently.
I can almost guarantee you, he's going to jump on the percentage of time that Trump spent talking about the Epstein files. Again, I told you the trick. And she's just, I guess, not that good at this. She doesn't realize that she just gave him another lifeline for him to stall.
To say that they found Trump's name in these files that we also know have explicit pictures of children inside of them. We also know that the man who is behind all of this, Epstein, is a sexual predator, a criminal. And if we know all these things, if Epstein has referred to Trump as one of his best friends, if they have been exchanging, intimate letters with each other as best friends, if his name is in the files, we know that for sure, because FBI agents were told to comb through hundreds of thousands of pages. And if that information was even kept from Trump for months, just so the administration could figure out what was going on, we know, right, that we have the burden of proof.
It's that little finger on the nose and shifty eye thing he just did.
Is at the very least on the Republicans and the conservatives, or not from the conservatives, but Trump himself, who ran his campaign off of this. And also...
Hello, Mark Barden here from San Diego.
This guy has a lot of money. This is the most popular ad that I've seen. This thing has been running forever.
In the files. I think that's just very clear.
First, we should talk about what it means to be a hoax, because I agree with James that this is
Kazem doing what he does best. He pushed the red button to say, no, it's not a hoax. And now the first thing he has to say is, actually, yes, it's a hoax, but, right? Got to give that nuance.
Opportunism by the Democrats, but we should remember that the genesis of this whole situation was Trump was asked in an interview by Lex Friedman, I think it was in October, would he release the Epstein files? Now,
notice that he references the Lex Friedman interview, and not the one on Fox News where he was like, "Oh well, I might release the files." You don't want to talk about that one. This is not a good faith actor.
Now, that's a far cry from campaigning on releasing the Epstein files. He was responding to...
Again, now he's jumping on this thing about, let's not talk about the substance of the argument. Let's focus on whether he literally campaigned on this. Right? Because both of these men are smart enough to know that's a difficult position to defend. I don't think there's sufficient evidence to make that argument. They know this. They'd rather talk about this than the substance of their argument. So now you have two guys doing the same thing.
To a request, and he said, yeah, I'd look into it. Then when he entered office, Pam Bondi made a huge spectacle of releasing the Epstein files. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was an event. They brought all these conservative influencers. Binders, yeah. There were the white binders. I thought it was in poor taste. And
I thought it was in poor taste. This guy's objective. He's calling out his own side, isn't he? Right? He's not a partisan clown like the guy to his right. Or is this all strategy?
Expectations were mismanaged because there wasn't much in there. Either she was lying or it was a moment of incompetence. And that's what I actually think it was. And I think after the MAGA movement was upset about this, rightly so, because expectations were mismanaged, then the Democrats smelled blood. They jumped on it. And to the extent that the Democrats are opportunistic and not actually sincere in wanting to get the Epstein files released, because there were 4 years where there were...
I don't know why the perhaps morons on the left don't concede this point. So you can take it away from them. This is not worth debating. They're wasting time. Just concede. Yes, the Democrats are exploiting this. Unless I didn't hear them say it. Yes, they're exploiting it. We agree. Don't give them this time to filibuster on something that's irrelevant.
They were mum to the moment. Yeah, it's a hoax in that sense, but I don't think it's a hoax overall.
Correct.
And we should also be clear.
It's a hoax, but not this kind of hoax. It's another type of hoax. So I'm saying it's not a hoax, but it's also a hoax. This guy's good.
What are we talking about when we say Epstein files? Because these 33,000 pages of documents, Trump was already listed in the documents that were already public knowledge for years, by the way, because these are documents of all of Epstein's business dealings, everyone that he associated with. Being in the files is...
I can almost guarantee you he's not about to mention the fact that there's truckloads of files that the right claims that they wanted that are being covered up and withheld. But he's probably going to talk about the grand jury decoy, which doesn't have the stuff that the people on the right claim that they want. The grand jury stuff is not going to get you to Clinton and the billionaires that mess with those kids, right? So if he's a good faith actor, he's going to focus on the truckloads of files, right? If he's a bad faith actor, he's going to focus on the decoy that Trump put out there, which is this whole, oh, you want this thing? Okay, well, I'll give you this other thing, right? Bad faith helped Trump to deceive conservatives. Good faith, talk about the actual files that matter. Let's see what he chooses to do.
Files is not proof positive that you molested children. There's a different question entirely of what does it say about Trump in the files?
Yeah.
I think that's the next topic we'll get to. But to the extent that he's talking about the Democrats having manufactured outrage about that, I agree. But overall, this is not a hoax.
I don't want to speak for Zena, but I don't think we're going to be the biggest defenders of a lot of mainstream Democrats today. I think that what really is in the files is implications of people in high positions of power that are utilizing their leverage to do terrible things. And Donald Trump is not the sole person in that needs to be implicated. If Bill Clinton is in there, we want to see prosecutions. If there are top Democrat aides in there, we want to see prosecutions.
Yeah.
We want people to be held accountable in positions of power. It's not about political affiliation. But we know that Donald Trump is intentionally trying to spend this. He could very
Notice the folks on the left are the only people in this debate so far that talked about bipartisan guilt. They say Clinton, if he did something, get him. Big Democrats did something, get him. Neither of these right-wingers have said the same. Why is that?
very easily let this go away by just saying,
Are these right-wing influencers more interested in defending a man who might have done things with children or been associated with that? Is that their priority? To protect creeps who do things with children? Is that what they're focused on? Sure seems that way.
just saying, I'm letting the Department of Justice handle it. We're not talking about it any further. But his insistence to either cast blame or throw to other people or to inflate things that are not true by saying it's the Democrats that did this, they've been lying about it for years. It's the constant goalpost moving that is very clear to the American.
Here's another point to think about. Are any of these right-wing influencers willing to apply political pressure to get the files out, the truckloads of files, not the decoy files? Is Kazi not going to vote for Republicans unless they release these files? Is he going to do anything at all? Is he spending day in and day out calling out Trump and others for not releasing the files? I'm guessing not. Why is that?
American people, and why I think a lot of Republicans are very pissed at MAGA.
And just to be clear, I don't view this as like Republicans and Democrats.
Not at all.
I honestly, not even
Also,
just this
I'm not
issue.
registered as a Democrat.
There you go. Both sides. I don't believe in left versus right. Good things are good and bad things are bad.
Yeah, I mean, I hate the labels. I realize we got to talk about it. It's good for marketing. I just hate it. It's like, I'm a guy who voted for Trump. I also voted against him the 2 prior elections. But to the extent that we're talking about the Epstein case, just to clarify, we already knew Trump was in the Epstein files. He's been there for years. We knew he flew on Epstein's private jet. It appeared that he never flew to the island, but yeah, we knew they were friends. There's nothing, Trump being listed in the Epstein files wouldn't be a
So this guy voted against Trump before, which means he probably knew how bad Donald Trump is. I'm guessing at some point in time you realized that there was money to be made, and all of a sudden he's a Trump apologist. One of the best.
be a revelation.
Right. I think the revelation, though, is when he's talking about
Slow down, honey. Too fast, Trevor, too fast.
I know.
Maxwell,
Let me just finish.
and saying that he
Hold
could give
on.
a presidential pardon
I
to
wasn't
them.
done yet.
Go ahead. You
So
can
just to finish, the revelation wouldn't be that Trump's name is in the files. The revelation would be that he did something illicit with minors, and that's in the
He's
files.
a co-conspirator.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I think what you're saying, James.
See, the guy on the left recognizes that this is a really good trick, right? He's acknowledging the basic facts that Trump would be in the files. This is something that somebody really, really partisan like Steven Crowder probably wouldn't admit that, right? That's why these guys are in a higher tier. They give just enough plausible deniability, just enough hedging. You know, obviously Trump's names would be in the files, right? Somebody like a Steven Crowder would never admit that, so you could attack him on that vector. Here, you can't do it with Kazi because hey man, I acknowledge that his name is on the file. I'm not trying to hide from it, right? I'm not hiding from the truth. I know he was associated with him or whatever it is. I'm just saying that there's no evidence that he did something with children.
James is like, there's a lot of motivated reasoning here that the bar can never be met and cleared for Democrats.
Correct.
It's like he keeps releasing files. He tried to get grand jury transcripts unsealed from New York. And
so notice he says he keeps releasing files, right? Very clever. This is the truth. He's not going to acknowledge and point out that Trump keeps re-releasing the same stuff that we had before, which seems a little suspicious, but of course he's not going to point that out. He's just going to notice his main thing here is to support the deflection tactics of the establishment, right? The games that they play, he's there to basically promote that, right? They're releasing files. They release a lot of files. They keep releasing files, right? Not going to talk about, notice how he's very nuanced with things, or appears to be, but there's no nuance with this, right? There's no nuance of what files is Trump releasing, right? Not going to point out the suspicious nature of it, the amount of redacting, right? That wouldn't help his argument. What he's going to do is put out just enough information to protect the people protecting these creeps who did these things with children.
And Florida judges.
Correct.
They denied that. They did release 3,000 more pages of documents. At what point is enough enough? And I think that's the point that he's making. Like, the hoax is that.
Think about the idea that someone's re-releasing the same files over and over again, playing games with the binders, redacting a bunch of stuff, having truckloads of information, and basically holding that all, and then adding decoys of like, let's get this other information that we know we probably can't get and doesn't have what you guys want. He's not talking about any of that. He just wants to generally say, well, they're releasing files, and how many files? Sorry, the left will never be satisfied. Oh, so it's only the left that wants to know the truth?
Is that, hey, you guys aren't actually looking for justice, and nothing would satisfy you outside of Trump saying, yeah, I did go to Epstein file and I did abuse children. And I think that's like an unreasonable standard.
It's really not. The simplicity is releasing those that were perpetrators. That's it. Just don't keep shielding the names. But that's the point here. And I think this is interesting to talk about too. I mean, obviously it's become a mainstream.
You saw the response? These guys are political commentators. They do this for a living. They're here defending the Epstein files and Trump's handling. This guy drops something from one of the biggest stories about this. And his response is, what is that? Is this a good faith actor?
I think you know.
He's really never seen this drawing?
I know. What is it actually? I don't know.
This is from the Wall Street Journal. They uncovered a story a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was a couple months ago. I can't even remember the timeline. Oh, so you do know.
Well, I know the story. I know the story. The Wall Street Journal broke.
What is this? I don't know anything about it. Oh, actually, I do know about it. No. I know about it, but I didn't know about it in this way. And right.
A story on July 15th.
Gotcha.
They didn't
how can you take anybody seriously who's talking about this topic who hasn't seen that drawing yet? I mean, the right wing has a rebuttal that it's not his signature and it's fake or whatever. So it's not like it's something isolated in the left. There's been a right wing response. He hasn't seen any of it. He hasn't seen the left wing media talking about it. He hasn't seen right wing influencers trying to say it's fake.
You know quite a bit of the details.
I mean, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't release the letter. This was gotten by the Oversight Committee. And I hear a lot of Republicans saying that this isn't him. The president has denied that it's authentic. He said that this is another part of the Democrat hoax, this fake story. I really don't care about this paper in particular, I know it's getting a lot of media attention right now, but when you see like the man that Donald Trump is, we can all acknowledge that this is not a man of traditional conservative values. I mean, this is a man who's been in multiple marriages. He said that he would have sex with his daughter if he wasn't related to her. He said that he'd grab women by his genitalia, bragging about that to a news reporter. I think we can all agree that this is not the epitome of what conservative traditional
Well, the epitome
values
of
would be.
conservative Christian values is not to judge somebody by their worst mistake from 20 years ago, whether or not.
Notice what he's doing. He's completely sidestepping Trump's lack of conservative values, right? Moving the goalpost to talking about we don't judge people for things that they do 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Ignoring the things that he's doing right now.
Whether or not they actually said something. What a conservative and a Christian does is they look at the person they are today. Let's just take this letter to the nth degree, just for a moment. Let's say I guaranteed you that Donald Trump wrote this. What does this prove? And I don't believe he did right.
Let's say it hard. What does this prove? What does this prove? It doesn't prove anything. It's just a letter. That's not a good faith argument.
But what does it prove if he wrote this?
Yeah, I think it proves a lot about, the relationship that Jeffrey Epstein, a sexual predator, and the president of the United States had.
Well,
it was one on the basis of, relationships with women that seemed to be extremely objectifying. We've also seen multiple testimonies from women that kind of align with the same.
I just want us to understand what's happening here. There's a sexual innuendo letter with a drawing of what looks like potentially a very young female. Could technically be a woman, but it doesn't look like that. It's never just one thing, right? There's this exploitation of these young girls done by Epstein. Trump was good friends with this guy, right? Now we find a letter that Trump supposedly wrote with a drawing that looks like a child. Like, are we supposed to just think that that's coincidence? Right? The pandemic started near a lab where they were doing research on the specific virus that created the pandemic. The right wing makes it kind of obvious to them that this is probably not a coincidence. Trump is accused of potentially having at least awareness of a child trafficking ring. Now we see a letter from him with a drawing that supposedly he made of someone that looks like they might not be an adult female, might be an actual potential child, or at least somebody very, very young. In this case, is the sort of the way that this looks doesn't look fishy, doesn't concern you. The lab being close to where the outbreak started, that's kind of like duh. But Trump drawing a picture of someone that looks like a child and a sexual innuendo in it and sending it to a child sex trafficker. Now, we wouldn't want to indict him just on that, but this guy honestly doesn't see the relevance. Now, think about that for a second. Why is he pretending not to see the relevance of a letter like this?
Same, air of just objectification that we see is perpetuated in like letters like these.
Which testimony?
Why would there be? I can reference that after. But why would we see, for a birthday, like if you and your friend, like let's say your friend is coming to your birthday party, and they give you a letter, it would be of a naked woman and with strange innuendos of this one about secret, get-togethers and things.
Where's the secret get-together here exactly?
So
Now he wants to go and nitpick. Oh, okay. Let's see what you're talking about. Let's be reasonable here. Show me what you're talking about. Almost as if he never heard of this before. I wonder why.
They'd be another wonderful secret, and then he has a woman drawn here. I think that's just very strange, especially when we see.
Sure, it's strange. I think that we can say Donald Trump came out and admitted
he just wants to concede that it's strange. That's all he gets from that.
He showed the world. I don't know him as the family man, and I want to speak to the family as well.
Well, I think we'll all remember him, not even so much, Mason, for his political beliefs.
Like, let's say your friend is coming to your birthday party, and you know they give you a letter.
He's also a sexual assaulter.
I'm not even
it's
clear.
called
I'm not
civil
even
libel.
clear why we're talking about this when this is actually about the release of the Epstein files.
If you constantly have signs, right, that are you know buzzing around.
Notice the objective guy just so happens to be on the same side of this other clown of like, why are we even talking about this? This is literally part of the Epstein files, right? This is one of many clues that can help us to figure out what happened. And he's saying, why are we even talking about this? Something that directly connects Trump and makes him look very, very bad, right? In a situation where Trump looks very suspicious. He wants to know why we're even talking about it. Can you imagine him saying, why are we even talking about the
Around
fact
this picture, we have to take note of
that the outbreak for the pandemic started near the lab? Like, why aren't we talking about the outbreak in the wet market or something else? Like, why are we focused on some random lab that just so happened to be nearby? Like, why are we talking about that? I'm not talking about the virus itself and blah, blah, blah. Can you imagine him doing that? Nope.
note of that if we're examining this issue in good faith. Trump has continuously over the years proven to speak about women in objectifying ways. It's strange, it's peculiar, and he had a close relationship with a sexual predator. Okay. That is very absurd, and I think that we need to note that. And this is another thing that shows us, you know, the ways in which Donald Trump might view women.
To me, this doesn't really do much for the conversation. Honestly, it's a bit of a pop culture piece, and it's interesting. It doesn't tell me anything.
It's a bit of a pop culture piece. Mm-hmm. War crimes in Gaza.
Murder.
Israeli airstrikes today hit a hospital in southern Gaza. At least 20 people were killed.
Among them, 5 journalists for international news outlets, including the Associated Press and Reuters. Imtiaz Tayeb has more, and we caution you here that some of the images in his report are graphic.
The killings were captured on live TV. News cameras were already trained on the Nasser hospital after an initial Israeli strike killed several people.
He's not even looking at the screen.
Short time later, a second Israeli strike hit as first responders and journalists have already rushed to the scene. Among the more than 20 killed were medics and civilians, as well as journalists Miriam Abu Daga, who worked for the Associated Press, Hussam al-Masri, who was with Reuters, Mohammed Salam with Al Jazeera, Ahmed Abu Aziz, who worked with the Al-Quds feed agency, and the independent photojournalist Moaz Abu Taha.
By targeting hospitals and killing...
Won't you notice something else that shows you these guys are really top tier? Notice they're not doing what the typical right-wingers do on these kind of shows. They just troll and laugh and giggle and everything's funny. That's what I'm telling you. Kazi is like really, really good at what he does. He seems to be like a normal person. He's just sharing his opinion. Both sides, blah, blah, blah. A little bit of nuance. And you don't see him laughing and mocking and trolling. Really, really convincing that he's good faith.
And killing journalists, Israel has crossed the line from warfare to war crimes.
3, 2, 1.
They all agree. Or do they? Remember the games that are played by these folks on the right. The both sides fencing. Right? Nothing they say is ever clear. This is my position. It's always dancing around. So do they really all agree? Let's see how long this lasts.
Incredible.
I'm so happy.
But doesn't this speak to the transcendence, that it's not just left and right, that we can recognize an issue that's a bad one, just call it out?
I think that when you're talking about institutional power, that's where it's going to be different. And none of us are legislators here. None of us are contributing to the genocide that's continuing to happen. So I'm very much appreciative that the United States electorate is moving in a direction to recognize war crimes when they see it. That is fantastic. And I'm so glad that we don't have to debate the humanity of Palestinians that are going through this type of tragedy right now. Yeah. But the current administration is in full favor of what Israel is doing, and they are giving zero checks. In fact, the administration is actively targeting those that are critical of the Israeli regime. So that I hope.
So now we have a problem. Supposedly they all agree that this what's happening by Israel is bad. But now he's pointing out the administration's culpability with this. Right? So are these two propagandists gonna just stand strong and be honest and, you know, go all in? Or is this where they start waffling? Let's see.
I hope that you would consider, even though you might respect some of the issues of the Trump administration, that is a violation of our freedom of speech, and that is explicit overreach of the government for what people can hold as far as
Is it really?
criticisms of a different country's regime.
Sure. So it's obviously a war crime, and we all agree on that. But just to bring some polarity here, just because otherwise it's not going to be a very interesting conversation.
Just to bring some polarity. Interesting choice of words.
The whole war was started on a war crime, and that was October 7th. So
the whole war was started on a war crime. He just said, called out Israel, right? But now, the same guy who did that is now going to repeat Israel's propaganda, talking about October 7th, pretending like this is when everything started. Is this a good faith actor? Or is this a manipulative, very smooth, very intelligent, manipulative propagandist?
So
can we agree on that?
No.
So you don't think October 7th was a war crime?
I think October 7th is an inflection.
Notice the game. This is a very critical part of this conversation. He says that he believes that this thing began with a war crime started on October 7th. I'm pretty sure the left-wing response is going to be that it started before October 7th. Pretty sure that's what he's about to say. Can you guess which direction Kazi is going to go? Is he going to address the fact that it didn't start on October 7th? Or is he going to hyper-focus on the definition of whether October 7th was a war crime or not? Right? This is the same trick he did before. You can address the position being made, which is that it didn't start on October 7th, or you can deflect and throw a decoy in there and let's hyper-focus on something that he thinks he can win on, which is obviously October 7th. I think most people would agree it's a war crime, right? These left-wing folks are not going to be able to challenge that point. Hence, he wants to talk about that rather than talking about what this guy said. Let's play it. Let's rewind a little bit, see how this goes.
October 7th. So
can we agree on that?
No.
So you don't think October 7th was a war crime?
I think October
clarity here, just because otherwise it's not going to be a very interesting conversation. The whole war was started on a war crime, and that was October 7th. So
can we agree on that?
No.
So you don't think October 7th was a war crime?
I think October 7th is an inflection point in the ongoing conflict. I wouldn't even call it a war because it's so one-sided, and it has been for over a century.
So notice he made it very clear that his issue is not with the definition of whether it's a war crime or not on October 7th. His issue is that it didn't start there. The good faith thing is to challenge either you agree that started then or you disagree. A bad faith tactic is to, again, focus on the definition of October 7th. Now, that's what Kazi did. Now, is this guy going to do the same thing? If he's a bad faith propagandist, that's exactly what he's going to do. Neither of them are going to want to address when this started. They're going to want to run up the clock talking about something else.
How would you, for someone who, let's just say, didn't know anything about October 7th, 2023, how would you describe objectively what happened that day?
Yeah, I think that.
So, as expected, he wants to talk about the definition of October 7th, not challenge the argument made, which is that it started before that date. He's not even addressing it or acknowledging it at all. Why would that be unless he's a bad faith actor?
That October.
I suppose he could just be stupid. I don't think so.
October 7th, we saw civilians die. We saw people who, some weren't even Israeli citizens, going there for a music festival, people getting killed in very extreme and gory ways. That is not something that anybody can watch and feel a sense of justice for.
Unfortunately, this guy on the left is failing right now. He's falling for the trap. He is getting stuck on this, whether October 7th was a war crime or not, or something around that. He's not standing his ground and reasserting his point that it didn't start on October 7th, right? The fact of how things went down on October 7th is not supportive of his argument. His argument is that that was not the beginning. So why is he now talking about what happened on October 7th instead of talking about what led to it, right? So this guy on the left is just being sloppy right now, and he's allowing those dishonest actors on the right to further run up the clock and distract.
For that's something that is very clearly a disgusting thing that happened. I think that when we're looking outside of our emotional capacity as humans who have empathy, we can also understand why violence occurs. We can talk about that, right? I think that even for like German citizens in World War II, we would have some sort of empathy for those that were involved in the conflict that the United States had on them, correct? Even if they disagree ideologically.
Sure.
Yeah, but we understand that violence is happening in a particular way because of certain actions done by different people that are external of just the individual actions made by those people.
So what would that
James,
context
can I-
be?
Can I actually just to stay on the topic of war crime? I'm not talking about the causality and whether October 7th was initiated by Hamas or it was in response to Israeli oppression. I'm just saying categorically it's a war crime because they targeted
that wasn't
innocents.
You are not talking about causality, but that was the point made. That was the exact point made by the person you're debating. He's saying it didn't start then. Do you agree or disagree? Why are you avoiding responding in any way to what he said? Why do you want to, again, use this tactic of focusing on the thing that you think you can win on, right? How on earth is this left-wing guy going to be able to say it wasn't a war crime? Can't, probably, right? So you want to talk about that because that's something you can win on. That's a bad faith tactic. It's not having conversation, then hearing out the other side.
In your initial question, you said, did this start by October 7th? It is a war crime.
Okay, cool. We agree on that then. Cool.
What to expect on a Holiday Max escorted tour. Come follow me, let's see.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something important to know about what happened here. It's just like the targeting of journalists that we've seen. This is just, again, indicative of the fact that this is not any kind of like two-sided, conflict. Instead, this is one side who is controlling the narrative and just inflicting a lot of pain on a community in ways that are detrimental and need to stop. Like, I think that there shouldn't be some point where we were hoping for it to get so bad. We've been there for a long time. And I think that now when we're seeing like journalists, people who cover things, people who want to be independent and give us the facts are being targeted, it's important. And it's also a tactic of destroying kind of our ability to perceive information impartially that we've also seen go on in America. Something that I'm very scared of in all ways, but specifically here, it's super important because people are dying in our faces, and I think it's important.
James, do you have nuance in having very strong support of the Trump administration while also recognizing that the Israeli regime is committing war crimes?
So what I would say about this, and it's really troubling because I think about the issue that this idea of anti-Semitism, right? Obviously, when you get kids who are being jumped on a campus for being Jewish, that's wrong. But to sit there and criticize the Israeli government with substance and say, look, what happened to this hospital? What happened?
They're not being jumped on because they're Jewish. In general, with exceptions.
This isn't a political thing. I have an obligation. When 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called DC, District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. We have no crime. It's in such great shape. You can go and actually walk with your children, your wife, your husband. You can walk right down the middle of the street. You're not going to be shot, Peter. You're safe.
Trump's federal takeover of local police in cities like DC, Chicago, and Baltimore is a necessary intervention to combat crime.
3, 2, 1.
What's green and red together? Blue? Purple?
No.
What color is that?
I don't know.
That's what I would pick if I could, but I can't. And the reason why is because these are actually...
Once again, both sides, right? I think it's good what he's doing, but it's also bad as well. I'm being nuanced. Right.
3 different areas with different legal requirements. So DC actually is a district. It's not a city. And
it's another trick, right? He wants to focus on the legality. This is a common thing that right-wing influencers will do. They talk about Trump does something bad. People pointed out that what he's doing is bad. They will ignore the argument, which is that what he's doing is bad, and deflect with whether he has a right to do it or not. Scott Jennings loves to do this, right? Imagine Trump does something really, really bad, right? Violating state rights or whatever. Just something really, really like, this is like, what are you doing, dude? If there's an argument to be made that he has some kind of legal way to do it, that's what Scott Jennings is going to want to talk about. His first thing is going to be, well, he has a right to do it. He's president of the United States. Elections have consequences. He won, and it's his prerogative. Okay, the conversation is not about whether he has a prerogative or right to do it. What we're saying is that what he's doing is bad or it's wrong or problematic. Why not address the actual point he made? Why instead flip it to he has a right to do it? I have a right to go out on the street and call fat women fat, right? Should I do it though? Right? So if I go around calling fat women fat all the time, randomly, and someone says that's disgusting, are you going to defend me and say, well, you know, he has a right to do it. We have freedom of speech in this country. Like no one is saying, like, no one said you don't have a right to go around calling people fat. They said it's wrong to do so. It's bad faith. It's immoral. Like you're just being a jerk. Why, instead of addressing those points, would you just say, well, he has a right to do it? What? By the way, you see the prompt up there? It says Trump's federal takeover of local police in cities in D.C. and Chicago and Baltimore is necessary intervention to combat crime. What does the legality of him doing it have to do with the prompt, whether it's necessary or not? So Trump is doing something, and the question is it necessary or not? His response is, he has a right to do it, and it's legal, and D.C. is a certain area, and like, what?
Technically, the government actually, or federal government can actually federalize it for 30 days, and they invoke the Home
So?
Act. And in that case, I think Trump had the legal authority and the ethical requirement to do that.
So, are you going to address the prompt and say whether it's necessary or not necessary? Or are you going to continue playing games?
Chicago, he can't actually do this. We have something called posse comitatus. He can't just...
Now he's talking about where he can and can't do it. And then he's also doing this wonderful, he's really good at this. Notice that he's saying, so technically he's critiquing Trump. He's not really saying it, but he's putting out that information that, hey, Trump is wrong on Chicago. He's not saying Trump is wrong on Chicago, but he's putting out that sort of, he's giving you the information for you to come to the conclusion that Trump is wrong on Chicago, rather than himself saying Trump is wrong on Chicago.
Just send the National Guard into a city without the governor's approval. So I want him to follow the law here. That said, if we look at the situation that's going on,
I want him to follow the law. Notice the passive language. He doesn't say Trump is violating the law. He doesn't say Trump is committing a crime, right? But you could come to that conclusion based on what he's saying. So he's protected. I'm not just a partisan, right? I'm just being honest and nuanced, right? I called out Trump for what he did in Chicago. Actually, he didn't really. He just kind of pointed out that he can't do it, but he is doing it. So shouldn't you condemn him directly and say Trump is wrong for doing this? And I don't support Trump doing this, rather than just saying, oh, that's not the way to do it. Like, why the mealy mouth sort of soft condemnation? I'm sure if it was a Democrat, he would have no problem going straight for the jugular. Why is that? Is he really reasonable, or is he just a partisan actor that's really smooth?
Going on in these cities, it's abysmal. And I think it's actually a reflection of the normalization of crime and decay in American cities that, frankly...
The guy who released a bunch of violent criminals who went on to commit more crimes after being released, he voted for more of that, and now he's going to sit here and talk about normalization of crimes. Yeah, by the people that you support, right?
I feel like we should be more up in arms about than the fact that Trump wants to send in troops to clean up crime. Because if you look at DC...
So once again, he spent all this time talking about everything else but the topic. Was it necessary? Was it necessary? All the stuff that he said does not let us know whether he agrees or disagrees with the prompt. Even though he clicked on the green, right? He clicked on the green to say that it's necessary, but he refuses to defend his position or even bring up his position. He talks about everything else. He has a legal right to do it and blah, 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 blah. And other people are normalizing. He's saying everything else, but this was necessary because if Trump didn't do this, X, Y, and Z would happen, or some kind of argument defending why he thinks it's necessary. He's not making the argument. He's playing games.
People said, oh, well, there's a 30-year low in the crime rate. Yeah, well, it's been at 50 years highs pretty much since the 1980s and the crack epidemic. And people have been living in these conditions for so long that a 30-year low sounds good, but in reality, it's still a terrible situation. And I think as Americans, we've become so used to this chronic decay in our cities that when someone introduces an acute solution, we have more of a reaction to the solution than the problem that we're all living in. So I would like to see collaboration with cities that don't want federal intervention because, yeah, I think there just needs to be more policing in Chicago. Some of these areas in Southside Chicago have higher.
He's basically describing his movement that he's a part of. They don't want to really talk much about doing anything about gun violence. But if somebody else does, they have all the energy and time in the world to go and attack them and say why that's a dumb idea. Some Democrat wants to do regulation on guns, something to do something about it. So animated. They love talking about that. But they don't want to talk about the actual gun violence. Literally, we just had a bunch of kids killed, same day that Charlie Kirk was killed. And the Protect the Kids Brigade on the right, they didn't care. They're lowering the flags for some YouTuber guy, right? While having almost nothing to say about the kids that got killed. Now, in all fairness, I haven't seen a lot of coverage of it, period, especially from the right. So this seems to be a little bit of a bipartisan thing. But once again, right, you are more focused on anyone trying to fix the problem, right? So someone just says like, hey, we should do this. They haven't actually done it. They're just talking about it. You get upset, make a big noise. This is communism. This is, they're trying to control us, blah, blah, blah. Just from the discussion. But the actual kids getting killed doesn't inspire any kind of like, hey, let's do something about this ourselves, right? Democrats are stupid. Their ideas are dumb. We Republicans, who are the smart ones and more reasonable ones, let's address this gun violence issue ourselves. Let's show them how to do it. No interest, right? A lot of interest in attacking people who are coming up with solutions than actually trying to fix it themselves. So spare me.
Higher crime rates than Honduras. It's insane. But I don't think that Trump has unilateral authority to do this in Chicago and Maryland. But I'd like to see Governor Pritzker and whoever the governor is of Baltimore, of Maryland, collaborate with him because they're not fixing it themselves.
Yeah, I think it's super important that we talk about crime. The problem is the framing of this situation is honestly ridiculous. I mean, if we want to talk about crime rate and like where crime is the worst, it's happening in often a lot of red states. We're seeing places like Birmingham, Alabama, who have drastically high crime rates. We don't see Trump, sending the National Guard there and overstepping his power in that way. We also act as though, bring the National Guard on U.S. citizens is the right way to combat crime, as if we don't know what the causes of crime are, which are poverty and desperation and things of that sort, which again should be operated at the governing level. But even still, I do believe that there are things that we need to do to fix the way that we absolve crime and we fix crime. But bringing in more force, which seems to be, if we look at all this prompts we've talked about today, force is the way that Trump seems
to actually care about the truth. I actually went ahead and took a look to see whether what he's saying is true. Right? I'm pretty sure an overwhelming majority of conservatives listening to this didn't even think to check into his facts, whether they're true or not. Unfortunately, I think folks on the left obviously anything that he says to make his argument, they're going to want to challenge, right? So I suppose they would be incentivized to look into it, but I know conservatives are not going to be curious. He just says it. He's on their side. They assume he's telling the truth. I checked it out, and it's true. I thought he was playing games. I thought he was doing some like manipulation thing, but I'm looking at the numbers right now. Per capita. Let me make sure that's correct. Yeah, this is per capita. It is 812 for DC. And it's the highest on the list. Next is New Mexico, Alaska, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee. Interesting details. Let's see the worst of by each crime. So per capita, DC is number 1 in violent crime. Homicide, DC again, Louisiana is next, New Mexico is next, South Carolina is next. Rape, Alaska by far. What the hell is happening in Alaska? Then Arkansas, then Michigan, then Colorado, then Wyoming, then Utah. So not a lot of rapes happening in DC relative to a lot of, wow. DC is like 24 on the list for rapes. Interesting. Robbery, again, DC, number 1. California's next, then Maryland, then New York. Interesting. New Mexico, Washington, Nevada. Aggravated assault. New Mexico is a very bad place. A lot of times they're number 2. They're number 1 for aggravated assault. DC drops to number 7. So objectively, they are pretty bad. However, this data is from 2022, which kind of makes sense. I don't know why the data stops in 2022. There's a 2023 chart that they show, and in that chart, New Mexico is number 1, 2023. DC, I don't think, not so much. Look at their high, but they're not that high. I want to know what 2024 numbers are and 2025. This is old data. So I guess maybe that's the trick. He's looking at old data, but where's the new data? Right? Is it not available? I'm looking and I didn't find it. I mean, I could spend more time looking at it, but anyway, I did care to know whether that's true or not. And apparently what he's saying is true as of 2022. I don't know about 23, 24, 25.
Seems to try to solve every single problem. And that's not the case. Long-term, experts are very concerned with Trump's, militant response to crime, because crime doesn't go away with more eyes and more a dictatorship approach. Instead, it's, working with these communities from the ground up, figuring out.
So I'm just curious. We're going to wrap this up. I'm just curious what they say about the drug boats. And I think we're going to look at one more topic.
I am Michelle.
And I am Craig.
And Craig here is my big brother. He's done a lot of everything.
It was a precision strike that signals a major escalation by the Trump administration, which says it will use the military to fight the flow of drugs coming into the U.S.
We just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs.
As I'm sure you guys can guess, I haven't seen this yet, but I think it's obvious that they're going to pretend like this is really about drugs and probably suggest that he's doing the right thing. He's taking action. Other leaders didn't take action. He's taking bold action. Some people don't agree with it, but this drug problem is pretty serious, and it therefore requires pretty serious actions. And perhaps they're glad to see that he's doing something about it, right? Kazi might be a little slick and say he doesn't agree with it because of war, but then somehow twist it to be like, but actually I do support it, because what else is he supposed to do? I disagree with it, but I also agree with it. That's Kazi. The other guy, he's definitely going to be like, this is valid, and Trump is being strong, and he's taking care of something. Probably deflect to Democrats. Like, why didn't they fix it?
Drugs in that boat.
The Trump administration claimed it killed 11 members of a Venezuelan gang and that the vessel was in international waters.
Trump's lethal strike on a Venezuelan boat was a justified act of national defense. What do you think?
3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Wow.
Interesting.
You got to look at the prompt and think about what we mean by these.
So Kazi starts off with yeah, I support this. So let's see how long it takes for him to say, I don't actually support it, or I rather him do it a different way, but something, something. Let's see how he wiggles his way out of it.
By these words, justified and national defense. What does national defense mean to you?
I'd like to hear your take on this.
Well, so
I have a lot of questions for you, though.
Yeah. So national defense means defending the nation. And we're losing 200 people a day to overdoses. We're losing 200 people every single day to poison.
And this guy doesn't care about that at all. Neither does Trump.
Poison that's coming through our ports, across our borders, in our mail. So when I think national defense, I'm not just thinking about the potential of a Chinese airstrike. I'm thinking about the real and present danger of 100,000 overdoses every single year. So a justified act is one in which you would protect the nation by taking out a potential target. The potential target is a boat full of criminals and drugs in international
How do we know that if they just blow them up?
waters heading toward the United States like hundreds of boats had done in years prior to try to smuggle drugs into our country.
What if this guy is on vacation on a boat somewhere and the Democrats in office and they claim that it's a drug smuggler and they just blow him up, right? And then the rest of the country is supposed to just trust. So it's like AOC or something, or let me use the boogeyman, Mandami. He blows up this guy, kills him, tells the world that it was a drug smuggler. No evidence, no nothing. Just trust us. Is he okay with that? I'm guessing not.
To poison our communities and to kill people, young and old, rich and poor, black and white. And so to this question, I believe that lethal strike was in fact a justified act of national defense.
Do you think that, or why do you think that they were bringing drugs into the United States?
Because they wouldn't be the first and they won't be the last Venezuelan drug traffickers to bring in drugs into the United States.
But what's the cause?
The reason they're bringing it in is because they are not the first or the last. The reason that drug smugglers are bringing in drugs is because they're not the first or the last. Okay?
Cause of them traveling with that type of substance? What's the cause of that?
The root cause?
Yeah, you're a markets guy.
Oh, the root cause is there's demand.
There's demand, exactly. So addiction is something that heavily needs to be treated here in this country. Neither Zena or I will say that the drug overdoses that we're seeing is one, something that's sustainable, or two, a signal of a stable nation. That's not in anybody's best interest, especially when most often it's targeting low-income communities. Drugs are used across the economic ladder, but specifically these overdoses are happening to those that have very...
I think it's a solid argument. It's kind of like, why doesn't Trump target the companies that are hiring illegal immigrants instead of targeting the illegal immigrants? Why doesn't he focus on dealing with addiction, which lowers the demand, rather than focus on blowing up ships? Right? If we had less people in a situation where they're needing these drugs, then these guys wouldn't be coming in with their boats, right? Not as much anyway. They'd probably go to another country.
Have very little resources. So it's important that we address addiction. I think that is...
And I'm pretty sure none of these right-wing guys have any knowledge or awareness of any other reasons why Trump might be messing with Venezuela, right? Just like how that guy pretended not to know about that letter from Trump to Epstein. You know, they have no idea about Trump's ideas on Venezuela and who the leadership is, and right? No suspicion, no nuance. Mr. Nuance Kazi's got no nuance about suspicious things that Trump has said or done regarding Venezuela. That if you put it all together, might paint a picture that makes you a little bit suspicious about like what his real intentions are. I'm not gonna hear any of that from Kazi.
That is vital, and mental health is another thing that leads people towards these dark, desperate paths. I don't think that killing these 11 people extrajudicially is going to solve the drug problem here in America. If anything, this is political theater to show that we have a strong man in the office saying, "Hey, look, I'm doing something about this," even though it's not causing the actual root cause of why we're seeing drug overdoses in the first place. And what we see is these military strikes, one, they need authorization by Congress. So completely bypassing that checks and balances in the Constitution. I'm sure both of you are fans of
Who cares about the Constitution?
the Constitution.
I am, but
It's
which
not
part of the
something that we
Constitution
should-
says the president's authorization for a military strike?
Hi, everyone. Mark Barden here at Sandy Hook Promise.
military strike, there's been some confusion after the AUMF, so I think 9/11's muddied the waters a bit. But if we want to go through proper channels, you need congressional approval to do a military strike like
You need
that.
congressional approval for a war. You don't need congressional approval for a singular act of national defense. I mean, if the Chinese were about to nuke us, we wouldn't need to run to Congress.
Do you think that
Thomas
nuking and 11 people bringing drugs is exactly comparable?
Well, legally speaking, you're making the argument that it is, because you're saying we need permission for any sort of
No,
attack.
you need to prove imminent threat, and that is
imminent threat.
No, it's
Venezuelan
not.
gangbangers bringing poison into our country.
That's not an imminent
Well,
threat.
just to your point, I just want to correct one thing you said.
I'm not saying it's not dangerous. I'm not saying that those drugs are not causing harm to people, but you need to prove that there's an exact attack on American people. Them bringing drugs is not that. We have law enforcement. We have legal channels to take care of these things. It does not be through the authorization of the United States.
And sadly,
there's a reason why we have the Coast Guard. There's a reason why we have the DEA.
Correct.
It's not just President Trump pressing a button.
But I actually agree with you with what you said, and I think you meant it to be not a positive, but I actually agree with you what you said, that this is President Trump in an act of political theater. I actually agree with that. And the reason why is this is what we call shock.
So he's the first one that does the Kazi move. Let me pretend to concede that it's political theater. He's not a partisan actor. Look at this guy. He's calling out Trump for political theater. Amazing.
Shock and awe deterrence. Can you imagine any Venezuelan drug trafficker or a Guatemalan drug trafficker wanting to bring stuff into the United States now?
Apparently it's not working because he literally blew up 2 boats in a short span of time. So apparently the first one didn't scare off the second one. And they're claiming there's a third one, but for some reason they don't want to talk about that one. I wonder why. I'm sure that none of these guys on the right have any interest in any of that at all.
That there's an F-35 20,000 feet above them they can't even see. This is a beautiful deterrent to protect young lives. And I'll leave just one last point here, Mason, because I respect the heck out of you. You understand the root causes of addiction. I lost my own.
I respect the heck out of you. Well done.
When I was 8 to the poison that came across the southern border. Drug use has gone down. What's gone up is the lethality of drugs. When that son of the YouTube former CEO died at UC Berkeley, that was his first by the president.
All right, well, that seems to be it. Satan is pregnant with the president's child. So Fox News can now confirm Donald Trump has been f***ing Satan this whole time.
I'm not sure about this one. Are they going to go the free speech thing? Or are they going to say this is too far? I'm pretty sure Kazi's going to go both sides on this one pretty solidly. I don't know, man. Let's see.
Mocking the sitting president on South Park isn't edgy, it's disrespectful and irresponsible.
3, 2, 1.
Well,
Naturally. You see how this rolls? The ultimate propagandist in the middle, he's definitely going to protect Trump no matter what. Kazi's got to play the fence. So we already know what Kazi's about to do. He's about to say, this is comedy, free speech should be free speech. And then he's going to flip it the other way and say the left something or whatever.
Look, I think mocking any president is okay if it's done in good humor and good faith. I think this idea that he has a small penis, like South Park said in one of the earlier episodes.
Good faith. Once again, the classic right-wing argument. When you guys do it, it's bad. When we do it, it's justified, right? When we say F Joe Biden, that's fair play, right? We're not talking about Biden's penis. But you guys are talking about his penis. That's too far. So when you do it, it's bad. When we do it, it's good. Right.
Episodes that he's having sexual intercourse with the devil. It's not in good humor. And I think it distracts from what could be a real disagreement about policy issues. So I do think it's irresponsible.
I'm going to really enjoy Kazi's, hey, free speech, whatever. I support free speech. And then flips 180.
Well, I think it fuels this radicalization that we're seeing, quite
I don't
frankly.
see any way that Kazi stays on his position, right? Him saying that he disagrees that it isn't edgy is disrespectful. No way.
On the left toward Republicans. We saw that with the 2 attempted assassinations of the president. We saw that with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I think that this idea of rhetoric that demonizes, quite literally, that is the demon, Satan, demonizes Republicans, it is irresponsible. It's not funny. And
his friend Charlie Kirk called the rest of us evil.
It's protected by the First Amendment, but so am I protected as well, Mason, calling it out.
With Monday.com's intuitive work management platform, you
think that you are such a professional, and I think that you deserve your own show on Fox News. The way you articulate yourself and the way that you defend the regime, I think is fantastic. I think there's a lot of nuance there too. But
100%. Notice he doesn't push back. He actually seems to enjoy that comment. He's like, yes, I would love to be on Fox News.
South Park, to pretend like there's like meaningful political dialogue happening on a show like South Park is to dismiss like what the 27 or 28 seasons that it's been. It's always been about that very extreme satire with very grotesque and crude humor. I don't think that it's about everybody's like taste. I think that being able to mock people in positions of authority, regardless of what party they are or what principles they have, I mean, that's going to be something where it's going to be different tastes of people.
So he's doing it already. He's doing the Kazi move. I agree with you. While I disagree with you, I agree with you.
To say that it's like disrespectful and irresponsible, I don't know. I mean, it's a cartoon cutout. They're having like his little mouth go. Like, I think it's like very.
I gotta admit, I laughed at some of it. I saw the first couple episodes, but I also got to tell you something that I disagree with my party on. Not the party, but a lot of people who said this. This F Joe Biden.
Calling. Oh no, he's talking about the F Joe Biden. Oh boy, let's hear this.
Thing I thought was deeply irresponsible and disrespectful. I disagree with President Biden. I wish him well, but the idea of saying F-U-C-K Joe Biden.
Okay, I'm gonna see where he goes with this, but so far I gotta give him props for what he's saying right now is legitimate. Like, this is the first time I've seen him make a good faith, because he's bringing it up. He didn't have to bring up Joe Biden, right? For him to bring that up, he's bringing up an L for his side. He's so hardcore, like defending his side. For him to bring up an L, even though it's towards the end of the debate where most people are not going to see this, which is another trick that he do, but still, so far, this is good. Let's see how far this goes before he destroys it.
So do you think there's a difference with South Park talking about the president like that and President Trump having a Let's Go Brandon flag, which is insinuating that exact thing that you're talking about?
Look, I think anybody mocking the presidency of the United States, whether that happens on the left or right, is wrong. It's okay to make good jokes, and we've seen these, whether it's...
Notice he sidesteps it. He doesn't want to talk about the distinction between the president supporting the thing versus a TV show, right? Again, anything that's a losing argument, he just runs away from it, right? He doesn't want to talk about this is a TV show versus the president, right?
It's SNL or Mad TV when I was growing up as a kid. Those were a lot of fun stuff about the Iraq War and all the jokes there. But the idea that you would demonize the president, again, protected by the First Amendment, but I'm also protected in disagreeing with it, that he is in bed with Satan, is in many ways just a rationalization of what Democratic politicians have been laundering for years now. That the president...
Let's not pretend like Republicans are absolved of that, though.
I don't disagree.
Like the attempted assassination on Pelosi's husband. Like, let's not pretend like there weren't jokes done.
Let's not pretend. You're right. You're right. And so I think mocking anybody to that degree, let's mock them on their policies. Let's mock them on the fact that they defunded the police in 2020. Let's mock them on the fact that they can't agree that there's two sexes in the world. Let's not mock them on this idea that they're in bed with Satan, whether that's Republican or a Democrat. It wouldn't be any different. I would be just as offended by this if they were saying that President Obama was in bed with a man.
Is it edgy? Obviously it's edgy. Is it disrespectful? Obviously it's disrespectful. I don't think comedians have a responsibility to be respectful. To be respectful is to hold someone in high regard. I think the point of a jester is it's the one role where you expect them to be disrespectful. And I think having not just permissible comedy, but a culture of we want comedians to take risks and say things
that... so far. How long does this last before he flips it?
Maybe we're all going to really dislike is actually really important. And I think there was actually an anti-comedy culture that was perpetuated by, I think, the left over the last 5 years that is fortunately falling away. And I think now we've sort of opened up the Overton window and we can actually do these things. That said, I think what it's reflecting to me is really troubling. I agree with you, James. It's a reflection of a culture that actually views the other side as evil. And my concern is not that South Park is contributing to this, because again, I think that the comedian is just the release valve for a culture. My bigger concern is that people resonate with this at all. And I think if we were in a healthier place as a country, it wouldn't even be about getting offended. People would just be like, this just kind of sucks. It's like just not funny.
That's right.
But the problem is people find it funny because they actually view Trump as evil. They actually view him as satanic. They actually view his supporters as satanic. I know that's a bit of a straw man. I know there's many people who don't view it that way and they just see it as a legitimate disagreement. But as we just saw, there was a political assassination today and many people actually view the opposite. And
last
many
night,
more people that...
So notice what he's doing, exactly what I said he would. He is essentially making an argument that says that it's irresponsible. He's pointing out that it leads to violence. He says he disagrees that it's disrespectful and irresponsible. He starts off supporting that position. Then he flips it to a soft sort of, but I think it's irresponsible. I don't think it's irresponsible, but now I'm going to say it's irresponsible without actually saying it's irresponsible, but just like laying it out. He's laying out Based on what he's laying out, it's irresponsible, but he's not actually using that word. That's the both sides dance that he's doing.
Than I'd like.
When last night in DC, the president went out for the first time.
Would it be a bad idea if you use our credit card to pay for your marketing?
And there were protesters calling him Hitler, calling him our modern day Hitler, shouting at him just feet away from his table. And so South Park isn't responsible for that, to your point, but South Park is a reflection of our politics that, okay, you disagree with Trump about this, that, or the other, fine, but don't demonize the guy. Don't put him in bed with Satan.
Well, that's been done for every administration. Let's not pretend like it's a new part.
It was not done for the Biden administration.
It absolutely was.
Nearly to
if you're talking about satanic.
There you go. There you go. Yes. I don't think it's disrespectful or irresponsible, but the left is worse on this one.
Nick, it's going to be a particular side, my friend. And that's going to be conservatives that are talking about Joe Biden as eating children, as pedophiles.
Oh, no, I'm talking about South Park specifically. Are you saying South Park did this?
No. I'm talking about the broader cultural impact that.
Yes. I mean, you have Alex Jones and calling everyone satanic pedophile.
It's not just Alex Jones is a small case. It's a large portion of the MAGA base in particular.
Sure. And
I don't think the large portion of the MAGA base would say that.
I think it's unhealthy.
Look at his face, though. Look at his face, though.
Period. Irrespective of who's doing it to whom.
But it's going to continue.
And I would hope that we can do something to stop it because I think it's actually killing us as a country.
Why is that funny? Why was he smiling?
Separate calling Trump satanic, which I think is the joke, but the resonance with Trump being evil, I think that's a totally different story. And I think evil is a very interesting loaded word. I don't think we're talking about like in a religious way, but Trump being someone who we would say is a bad person or perpetuating harm towards people negligently, a lot of people would resonate with that. I would resonate with that. And also as well, when we talk about politics, it's not really just about disagreements. Like I think there are certain politics that maybe we can take our emotions away from it. We can take character away from it. A lot of politics that we're seeing being perpetuated right now, absolutely not. But what's happening with ICE and what's happening with the immigration, how it's being carried out, I think we can definitely, I cannot remove my emotions from that, especially as someone who has been in LA this summer. So I don't think it would be wrong for people to be feeling these ways and to be feeling anger. I think we're allowed to call Trump under scrutiny. I think we're allowed to not like him. I think we're allowed to call him a bad person, immoral. These are words we're allowed to use. A show like South Park, which is satirical, is going to represent it in a satirical, overt way. Obviously, Trump is not having a child with the devil. But does this represent the way that people are feeling anger about Trump and his immorality? For sure.
Yeah, and I'm not disputing that. I'm saying I'm troubled by the reflection. If that's a face that's looking in the mirror, I'm troubled by what the face is, which is a face of, it just feels hateful. We all know and the hate, again, I see it on the right toward the left, I see it on the left toward the right, and I just don't like
People should feel
right.
hate.
And by the way, I think
well, I don't think hate is ever productive, actually. I think you can feel angry.
Okay, maybe that's what I mean.
Yeah, I think
angry about deportations.
Yeah, I think anger and hate
only consuming political content in some instances. And I think a lot of these people who have these feverish feelings of hatred towards either party is in most part.
And there's a real toxicity to our politics today. And there's a real toxicity to our politics.
That's my concern.
And perhaps 1 out of 4 Democrats, just thinking about my own social circles. I got a lot of Democrat friends, actually.
That, but regardless, I don't feel like I want certain people to be harmed with my anger with them or with my frustration with them.
Great. And I'm glad to hear that, genuinely. I think there's a lot of
And there's a real toxicity to our politics today. And I got to tell you the truth, I'm grateful to Jubilee for bringing us together.
I wonder why there's a toxicity. Could it be somebody like him? And of course, he would be one of the conversations. I love having conversations and reaching across the aisle, right? Because he knows that stuff like this is not going to do anything to make things better. It's just great content.
Assuming are echo chambers of the same thought.
I agree.
And I think a majority of the people watching this video will be like, I want to see Mason and Zeno kill these guys, or I want to see, you know what I mean? Like, sure. I think that that's what it's going to be. But I still think it's important to have these. Like, sure. I think that that's what it's going to be. Politics has led to increased radicalization to where people are only consuming political content.
And there's a real toxicity to our politics today. And I got to tell you the truth, I'm grateful to Jubilee for bringing us together. We would not be at this table if it weren't for them even having these discussions. That's how we can mend the divide in this country.
Do you think so, though? Like, I think that a lot of the entertainment being intertwined with politics has led to increased radicalization to where people are only consuming political content in some instances. And I think a lot of these people who have these feverish feelings of hatred towards either party is in most part because all they're consuming are echo chambers of the same thought.
I agree.
And I think a majority of the people watching this video will be like, I want to see Mason and Zeno kill these guys, or I want to see, you know what I mean? Like, sure. I think that that's what it's going to be. But I still think it's important to have these conversations because you want to get these viewpoints heard, especially to those that don't have the same ideas that we do. But I think that the intertwinement of like, again, I'm going from my comedy to watch Steven Crowder, where there's always going to be a political spin on it, or I'm watching Destiny own these MAGA people. Like, is that really helpful to our overall conversation?
No, it's not. And those are obviously clipped up examples, but just they always say don't read the comments, right, Zena? But I always read the comments. I'm crazy.
Clipped up examples.
For that. But I read the comments of these Jubilee videos, and I've been honored to be a part of one before this. And I got to tell you, I see Republicans disagree with me. I see Democrats agree with me. I think when you break out of that echo chamber and you bring Republicans to an audience where they can hear you guys, and you bring Democrats to an audience where they otherwise you're not going to see.
This guy is like, you can see why he's friends with Charlie Kirk, who was really good. He's really good.
Out our stuff and our commentary and our thought leadership. That's a beautiful thing. I think one thing that we can do is invite debate into our own lives by just seeking out information that we otherwise might not be exposed to. I got to tell you, as much as I'm on Fox News, I don't actually watch it all that much. I tend to watch CNN.
Nothing he's saying is wrong, right? That's how you lie with the truth, right? He's very divisive, very dishonest, very bad faith. And then now he's going to pretend like he's the opposite. He just wants to have conversations and reach across the aisle and blah, blah, blah. Good things are good and bad things are bad. Right.
CNN, I tend to watch shows like Abby Phillip, where they've got conservatives and Democrats debating, and I'm grateful to be here doing that with you guys.
Slow down, honey. Too fast, Trevor, too fast.
Since Charlie Kirk and people like this started doing their content, has America become more toxic or less toxic? Interesting question.
I mean, I've been on quite a bit of Jubilee videos. My resume is getting bigger with this video in particular. So I'm not against going on. I think that it's important to be able to have these conversations and expose your viewpoints if you feel like you're somebody that's confident in what it is that you hold as a concrete worldview. I guess my broader criticism is that is becoming the only thing that people are consuming in some instances. And I think that technology has definitely radicalized that to where we're given information on the dot and you're able to access everything that's going on in the world in seconds. I don't think it's impossible to take that ability out of people's repertoire, but I do think that it's important to recognize that nuance and figure out how can we build community again. I'm really in favor of creating systems or third spaces where people are actually able to involve themselves in a broader community instead of just being terminally online, because I think that is really destroying people's ability to comprehend what's going on.
And just really quickly, as someone who has also been on Jubilee, I really do want to illuminate kind of like the reason that I've come on is that like almost all of the feedback I have gotten is that I'm exposing people to new ideas that are helpful for them, that I'm exposing them to creators who look like them, and that I'm able to articulate things in a way that makes sense for people, knowing what I can say and what I can bring to the table that I hope to see in these conversations that I don't always see in these conversations. So I think that's important as we see social media being a huge vessel for us to consume political content. I want to do that the right way and bring my voice to any table where I know that I'm perpetuating more good than bad.
So first of all, thank you guys. This was fun and productive, I think it's really healthy for people to see people with different worldviews come together and have a civil discussion. And I think this was civil the whole way. And look, America just needs to heal. I don't think any of us likes the situation that America's in right now. I think it's very...
Good things are good. Bad things are bad. I say good things are good. And bad things are bad. Good things are good and bad things are bad. I say good things are good. Bad things are bad. Bum, 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 bum. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate Me comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Holy crap. Am I going to have to take off tomorrow? I hope not, but it's not looking good right now. I am not feeling very well. It is what it is. It is what it is. Ciao.